Hi everyone, welcome to day 5 of AP week, and today we're going to go over our AP Science classes at Branham, which include Physics 1 and 2, AP Chem, AP Bio, AP Psychology, and then AP Environmental Science. Our agenda for today are speaker introductions. We're going to go over the exams and the differences between each AP, and then we're going to have a short Q&A with pre-prepared questions, and we don't really have anyone in the audience, so we're just going to stick to that. Our speakers for today are Chantal for physics, Arunima for chem, and then Tommy for biology and psychology, and then we have Emma for environmental science.
Okay, so a short overview of Physics 1 and 2 exams. The topics that are covered in AP Physics 1 is kinematics, dynamics, circular motion, gravitation, energy, momentum, simple harmonic motion, torque and rotational motion, electric charge and electric force, DC circuits, mechanical waves, and sound. And then for topics 2, we have fluids, thermodynamics, electric force, field and potential, electric circuits, magnetism and electromagnetic induction, geometric and physical optics, quantum, atomic, and nuclear physics. So for the exams, the AP Physics 1 test has 50 multiple choice questions and 5 free response. And then for AP Physics 2, we've also got 50 multiple choice and 4 free response. The free response questions are pretty similar. They have one experimental design, so they like give you something to investigate, and then you have to come up with like an experiment design, like I'll need these certain materials and list out steps for like how to find a certain like quantity. And then another one will be a qualitative/quantitative translation, and then the rest are just like short answers explaining like what you understand. Just as a disclaimer, everything is algebra based. You don't need calculus to pass. But because it is algebra based, colleges often do not take it for credit. AP Physics C, which include mechanics and electromagnetism, are calculus based, and these topics are gone over in AP Physics 1 and 2, as you saw on the list before, but they are not offered at Branham. How was my experience with the class? So I took AP Physics 1 like 2 years ago, so I don't remember that well, but I had Mr. Chittister. I remember it was like pretty okay as long as you like paid attention in class. I believe we did like warm-up questions at the beginning of every class, and those are pretty helpful as long as you paid attention because we would go over them. However, this was 2 years ago, so I don't know what it's like now. I think I was taking it at the same time while taking I'm3 STEM, and I found it like a little bit difficult, to be honest, because I don't know, it was just like I had to learn like different math concepts while learning the physics concepts, and they kind of overlapped. Like one of the topics is mechanical waves, I believe, and in I'm3 STEM you learn about like radians like after you go over the topic of mechanical waves in physics, which kind of made it confusing because that means I had to learn what radians were like before we went over them in I'm3 STEM. But it's not too difficult. It's definitely doable even if you don't have like all your algebra knowledge yet. So yeah. And then for AP Physics 2, I took it this year. So I took AP Physics 1, and then I had a year in between where I didn't take physics, and then I took AP Physics 2 this year. I had Miss Theo. The class, because it was online, it was a little bit difficult. I think it probably would have definitely been better if in person. Miss Theo is definitely super enthusiastic about physics, and it's like entertaining to learn. But I guess just definitely pay attention, because for me at least, I feel like it was a little bit fast, but also personally, I'm not super good at sciences, so that might have been why. But yeah, it's like not too bad. As long as you pay attention, you'll be fine. How do you study physics and prepare for tests? I don't really remember about AP Physics 1, but for this year, I would just, so at the beginning of each topic, Miss Theo would give you like this big packet of all the questions you'll ever do for homework for that topic, like for all like 3 or 4 weeks that you're studying it for. Just go over that packet. she will assign like certain amount of questions like for you to do, and just like do them like do a couple every day, and it should be fine. I personally did find though that FRQs were harder for me to like understand and do correctly, just because there's like several points that are given for different components and you don't really know what those components are ahead of time. So what I did actually was like go on Google and just straight up Google like FRQ 2016 AP Physics 2. And there would be like a video of a teacher going over that FRQ for like 20 minutes, just like going over the concepts that are used, how to write about the concepts, and how to like put them together. So yeah. And then also like AP Classroom is pretty useful. I found their daily videos pretty useful actually, because like Miss Theo goes over them pretty similarly, like in like she would take similar questions and go over them in like the same way that they would go over in AP Classroom. So whenever I didn't understand something in class, I would just go rewatch like the video that went over the same topic, and that was pretty useful. But other than that, I don't really recommend getting any cram books, because like the Barron's ones I believe are pretty short and they just like abbreviate the topic, and it's not really necessary. I don't think there's that many practice questions. For AP Physics 2, at least, the packets that Miss Theo gives you is definitely more than enough questions to practice on. And there's always one AP Classroom if you really want more. How important is it to remember AP Physics 1 content for AP Physics 2? So as I said earlier, I took like a year like in between AP Physics 1 and AP Physics 2 where I just didn't study physics at all. So going into AP Physics 2, I did not remember anything whatsoever, and I did fine. I think it might be useful though to remember like how to draw force diagrams. You will learn that in the beginning of AP Physics 1. It's just like understanding how to draw arrows on like, so let's just say like an object on a table, and then you have to be like, oh, there's gravity going down and there's a normal force going up, and they're like equal to each other because that box is like just stands still there, it's not moving. So just like remembering how to do that is pretty useful. I believe the AP Physics 2 like official equation sheet that you get for the exam will also have some equations from AP Physics 2, but I think they're pretty like simple. Like you don't have to like hardcore review everything in AP Physics 1 right before you take AP Physics 2 in order to pass. I do know though that at the end of the year, at least for this year, we kind of ran out of time to go over the last unit for AP Physics 2, which was like, I believe it was like modern physics, so like nuclear, atomic, that sort of stuff. That stuff has like chemistry topics included. And I personally did not take AP chemistry, and I took like on-level chemistry the year before I took AP Physics 2. So retaining some of your chemistry knowledge might be useful, because we ran out of time to go over that topic in class, and you will probably need to study over it on your own, because I believe each topic is like 10 to 15% of the actual AP exam. So there will definitely be like parts of FRQs on that last topic that we don't go over. So yeah, review your chemistry and know your force diagrams.
All right, so as Stella introduced, I am Arunima, and I'll be walking you through the AP Chem exam and class. So first off, we got the overview or format, if you will. So you got 60 multiple choice questions and 7 free response questions. You are given 1 hour and 30 minutes for the multiple choice, and you were given 1 hour and 45 minutes for the free response. You have, I believe, 3 long FRQs and 4 short. So the topics that you will be going over in the exam, class, whatever, is atomic structure and properties, fairly simple stuff like proton, neutron, electron, their properties, values, etc. Then you got molecular and ionic compound structure and properties. Here we're talking about like Lewis structures, bonds, physical versus chemical properties. Then you got intermolecular forces and properties. So you'll be hearing stuff about like London dispersion forces or hydrogen bonds, and how they contribute to making a solid, liquid, gas. Then you have chemical reactions, obviously. You'll be learning how to balance equations, how much product to yield, how much reactants you need to yield that product, etc. Kinetics, this isn't like physics kind of kinetics. It's more based on like the rate of reaction, how fast can a reaction go through, what leads to that speed. You'll be talking about like activation energy and stuff like that. Then you got thermodynamics. You might have been familiar with the word back in bio. There are 3 laws you got to know, and then you have to apply it with, entropy, enthalpy. Then you got equilibrium, which actually goes hand in acids and bases. Personally, for me, in the class, we did acids and bases first and then made a segue to the equilibrium. And also applications of thermodynamics also go hand in hand with thermodynamics. Next. So is it necessary to take on-level chem? Absolutely. I really would recommend that you take the on-level first and then go straight into AP Chem. At the same time, I would say AP Chem would better be saved for senior year instead of junior. So in that case, I would suggest you take physics in your sophomore year and then chem in your junior year. That way in senior year, you do AP Chem. But it's cumulative, so you can't skip a year and then, because you'll get like very lost very quickly. So yeah, definitely take it. You can either take it here at Branham, or you can do it at West Valley. Next. So what should you do to prepare for the class? Well, usually you're given summer homework. I'm not sure if that is the case. You'll have to check on the Branham website. But for me, there was definitely summer homework, and it focused on nomenclature, which is like the naming of compounds for like acidic compounds, bases, and ionic compounds. There's like just like technicalities that makes it easier for you in the long run. That way you don't like confuse things up when you're writing, because a lot of repetition you'll see in your like worksheets, exams. You'll be like noticing familiar products and everything, and you don't want to like mix them up, right? So there's that. You might be asked to review how to balance equations, because the equations that we balance in class are a bit more complex. Usually this is gone over during your on-level class, but since it's the summer, you may tend to like try to consume all that knowledge and then just throw it up on the exam and then forget. So the key thing is to not forget any of that. So yeah, make sure to review that. And the best way I did it was through YouTube videos. Like there's a lot of helpful resources on that. You can get a Barron's textbook if you want, but you might get a little confused because they don't give you like, oh, what do you need to know in order to do this workbook? So yeah, just really go for YouTube videos. Just search up like how to prepare for AP chemistry and you should be fine. Do you need to memorize the periodic table of elements? Absolutely not. Okay, don't go doing that. That wastes a lot of time. I know some people like memorize the song. Yeah, you don't need to do that. That will not help you on the test. You will be given a periodic table of elements sheet, as long as, no, how is it said? As well as a formula sheet. So you don't have to like memorize any elements. You don't have to memorize the mass number or atomic number, though that can be helpful, but like you don't have to like memorize any of that. Also, when you're given that sheet, it is always a new sheet, so don't go trying to like, you can label it for your own personal benefit whenever you're doing homework and all, but when it comes to the test, you can't bring your own sheet, so just keep that in mind. What you do need to memorize though is this chart, and I know it looks like a lot. So these are called polyatomic ions, and these are to balance a compound, not a chemical equation. You'll be dealing with like ionic compounds, and you'll need to know these polyatomic ions, their names and everything, because they're not going to give you a sheet on this, and they just kind of expect you to know, which, it sucks. There's no like pattern. You just kind of have to memorize. I would suggest using Quizlet or any of those kind of classroom tools. There really is no like hard and fast way to memorize quickly. So use that summer, to memorize all of this and take your time. What was my experience with the class? So I had most of it be in person. So what we did was a lot of labs, and a lot of those labs were kind of self-done, as in like they didn't give you instructions. You had to come up with your own instructions. The only thing is they tell you that we're looking for this compound, and you have to figure out how to reach that result, right? It's a little scary at first because you're just given like random chemicals and tools, and you're like, oh, what do I do now? You do it in partners, you do it in groups, so you're not like the only one lost, and you figure it out. And it gets, easier and a bit more fun as time goes on. We have packets, worksheets, pogles. You might be familiar with those. Um, yeah, in terms of workload, I wouldn't say it's heavy. Uh, Especially considering I did take 5 AP, so you got to worry about other things as well. I wouldn't think it's that heavy. I would say it took about 30 minutes to an hour at most, as long as you like pay attention in class. If you're the type that kind of zones out, then I would say maybe 2 hours. But yeah, I feel like in terms of workload, it's fine. If you're paying attention, you're taking your notes. Yeah, you should be fine. He does, by he, I mean Mr. Johnson, who was the AP Chem teacher. He does presentations, so you'll be taking notes on those. You'll also have access to those presentations in some student folder on Google Drive. That doesn't mean you shouldn't take notes. I would say take notes by hand, especially. That way you can like memorize and really understand the concepts well. Just having the slides to look at won't really help you in the long run. Um, in my case, not many people took AP Chem, so it was just one class.
You
We're
cut
losing.
out. Yeah, I think.
Do you want me to speak about my experiences with AP Chem? I didn't prepare for this. It was a great class. Mr. Johnson was of course, he was a great teacher, and we were able to cover most of the material. And compared to the other classes, right, AP Chem is a lot smaller. Well, I feel like I'm saying the same thing as I said for Bell yesterday, but the curriculum really isn't heavy. There's only so much material that you have to go over, whereas AP Bio, that I'll go over in a bit, it has just so much content and closely packed together that you're gonna study up until the date of the, well, not the date, but like the class before the AP exam. So we're gonna learn new content. But for AP Chem, you have a very comfortable buffer period of maybe like 3 weeks to study. So that's definitely makes the reviewing a little easier. But when you're taking AP Chem, you probably have other AP classes like Arunima mentioned earlier to worry about. So yeah, that's that. Should we move on?
Good cover.
All right, AP Bio. So first I'll go over the content. You start with chemistry of life, so you learn about properties of water, carbon, things like that. And then you move on to, I do not have these in sequence. You learn about like macromolecules like protein, nucleic acid, amino acid. Wait, that's the same thing as protein, and carbohydrates. And then you move on to cell structure and function. So you study prokaryotic cells and eukaryotic cells. I'm stumbling on these like words or scientific vocabulary, but you learn about all the different structures that belong in these cells, like I don't know, mitochondria. So what does that do, and how is that integral to the functioning of our bodies? And then you learn about energy. More specifically, you're digging to photosynthesis and cellular respiration, and how those two processes play a big role in our life. Cell communication, so the different pathways of how a receptor can tell you what's going on in your body, and how cells talk to each other. Heredity, I think this is where you do your Punnett squares and all that. Gene expression, so I think this is DNA replication, transcription, and then translation of how your DNA in your body or in your cells can be transformed into proteins that can do work. ecology and natural selection. This is probably strays a little bit from your traditional sense of biology, like what we had talked about earlier, and looks at the ecosystem as a whole and give you a more general overview of life on Earth. Next for the exam, it's 60 MCQs and 6 FRQs, so pretty straightforward. You know, these are typically, actually, I think the MCQ is split between stimulus-based and just straight up questions about like cellular respiration. Stimulus-based means that they give you a scenario, like they will draw you a environment of osmosis and ask you how osmosis will occur given the concentration of water and the solutes. And then for the FRQs, there are 2 longer ones and 4 shorter ones. And I really don't have much to elaborate on that. Yeah, my experiences with the class, it was excellent. Mr. Fernandez is an amazing teacher. He gives you a lot of labs well, it's a lab-based class as well, so there are a lot of labs to go along with your learning, and they really reinforce whatever you learn from his lectures. It is quite lecture heavy as well. Like you walk into class and then you'll sit and look at the slideshow for like 100 minutes or 60 in most cases. And yeah, it's very important for you to preview the notes before so you know what Mr. Fernandez is talking about when he is going over the slides, because he's relatively fast and he doesn't, and your understanding will be best if you already know the material pretty much in your mind beforehand and you have the notes, and in class you're just absorbing what he's telling you and making the connections between the different things that that he's lecturing on. You know, overall, it is definitely a difficult class, but if you manage your time correctly, and if you supplement your classroom learning with additional stuff from like Khan Academy or organic chemistry tutor or Bozeman science, it will you will do fine in the class. Living Earth and AP Biology. Those 2 are very different classes. I took Living Earth in my freshman year and I took AP Bio in my junior year. And I walked into AP Bio like not remembering a single thing from Living Earth. Of course, they have some material that overlap. For example, I do remember doing like DNA trend. We definitely did Punnett squares. Every science class does that. And then we did those DNA translation of, they give you a strand of DNA and you make them into amino acids. They have like these kind of wheels that you match up. So there's definitely some content overlap, but Living Earth is just not as rigorous as AP Bio, of course, and it doesn't prepare you that well for it, or just in my own experience. Plus, Living Earth covers more, I guess, covers topics that are maybe even more broad than AP Bio, just not as deep. For example, I remember learning a lot more ecology in Living Earth as compared to AP Bio. Like we'll learn about plate tectonics and we'll learn about like erosion and different types of rocks and things like that. And yeah, so these are pretty different classes. All right, AP Psych. So these are the different topics that we would go over. I don't think I added everything, but just the big topics that we learned about. So scientific foundations of psychology. This is where they will touch on a little bit of neuroscience, and you'll need to learn about the structures of the brain, like what is this area responsible for and what is this area responsible for. Of course, it's very shallow. Like you only need to know that like the amygdala is responsible for emotions, and if you get startled or scared, that's probably that part of your brain is lighting up, and that's pretty much the extent that the AP Psych exam needs you to know. Oh, I think I jumped ahead a little bit. That's the biological basis of psychology, but yeah. And then the scientific foundation will also cover other stuff that you probably would have already in your earlier classes, like the scientific method and things like that. And then you move on to behavioral psychology, cognitive psychology, developmental psychology, clinical psychology, social psychology. There's a lot to go along with it. But it's honestly really fascinating material because here's where I disagree with Chantal dramatically, that I think psychology applies to our lives even more than physics, right? Because it studies the interaction between people and, maybe, or especially I think the thing that applies the most is a learning chapter, because that's what you're doing in school, right? You're learning about, physics, for example. You might see some of the ideas in psychology happening on your in your own body, right? Your mind is making these connections, and I think that's one of the most fascinating parts of psychology, that it's very observable and you can see them occur around you. And for the exam, it's 100 multiple choice, which is very gruesome, but they are none of them are stimulus based. So it's just asking you about, who's this person, who's this psychology, like who's Sigmund Freud, and what was his idea. So pretty straightforward, but a lot of memorization to do. And for the FRQ, it is almost the same. It's probably the easiest FRQs out of all of them I've taken. It gives you a scenario and it asks you to apply the different psychological or psychology related vocabulary to them. And yeah. So what was my experiences with the class? I took AP Psych this year, so I had an online class for AP Psychology. There was a lot of reading and studying and memorization that you have to do with this class, which is honestly not my preferred mode of learning. I'll much rather have, lectures and then have labs to confirm what I'm studying from the books. But circumstances, and it's best that we could deal with it. But other than that, I had a lot of fun, like I mentioned earlier, learning about the different concepts and see them applied to my own life. So that definitely makes up for the lack of a lab or a lack of experiments in this class. How much previous knowledge is required? None. You don't really need to know anything coming into this class. Yeah. It's ethics part of this course for some parts of it, but it's not a major section of the class. Yeah, you will sometimes talk about, if this experiment that this guy, the psychologist back in the 1800s did on these patients are ethical, but you don't spend that much time talking about it. And is this the easiest AP class? I think a lot of people would think that, I'm taking, it's just AP Psychology. I can just add it on to my schedule and it's not going to cost me that much trouble, right? While I do think that it's somewhat easier comparing to the harder sciences that we went over today, like physics, chem, bio, it's probably a little less content and easiest to understand conceptually. Like AP Physics, I still don't understand physics, but there are some like those wheels and friction. Chantal is embarrassing myself in front of her, but yeah, to me, physics would definitely be harder than AP Psych, but by no means this is a easy class, right? There's still a lot of memorization to do, and you have to know what each psychologist did for their own fields, and they are very similar to each other, right? Like cognitive psychology and behavioral psychologists, they have a lot of overlaps in terms of their studies and their experiments. So I know, at least for me on the AP exam, they asked me like, who did this experiment, and they give me the names of 4 dead psychologists who were experimenting like the 1850s, and that was just immensely difficult for me. And yeah, so don't go into this class having the false perception that, I'm just gonna cruise through this class. There's still a lot of studying that you have to do in preparations for the AP test. I'm done.
Emma?
Sorry, I didn't realize the slide changed. Hi, I'm Emma, and I'm going to be talking about the AP Environmental Science exam. It's a little bit different than the rest because I think it has a little more MCQs, if I'm not mistaken. So the MCQ section, or the multiple choice section, is a lot longer than I think I would have expected going in. And then the FRQ section is actually a lot shorter. Sorry, I'm getting into a car. Yeah, it is a lot shorter than my other previous science exams because I did take AP Bio. On the test, we cover ecosystems, biodiversity, populations, and resource use, and we also cover pollution. And the FRQs have to do with like investigation, and then you kind of see environmental problems and you try and brainstorm solutions that would work and try to find like the least harmful one. I think one of the really big things in AP environmental is that a lot of things don't have one good solution. There's always drawbacks, both economically and environmentally. There's never one good solution. So a lot of it is kind of like defending your choice. And I can go on to the next slide. My experience with the class was honestly really great. Miss Reynolds was a great teacher. I did take this my senior year, so it was all online. Yeah, it was pretty lab based, but a lot of the labs, because it was online, weren't done in a classroom setting. A lot of it was kind of just examining our own daily lives. And yeah, it was pretty material heavy. A lot of it was lecture, but it was kind of similar to freshman year bio if you had a teacher that did the notebooks, because we did packets. It was really similar. So I can go on to the next slide. Apes to Living Earth, I'd say it was kind of similar. It just kind of goes into more depth. I think it was really similar to the first semester, where we talked a lot about like ecology, ecosystems, like food chains, like that kind of stuff. We did talk a lot about ecosystems. One thing that I will like want to warn people about with Apes and Living Earth is that Living Earth is like a very like broad general topic, and Apes is a lot more in depth. And because it's so much more in depth on climate and environment and stuff, it kind of does take an emotional toll, because we do talk a lot about the impacts of human life on Earth. So sometimes it is really easy to like kind of get caught up in it and feel like really helpless and really stressed out about the environment. And I can go on to the next slide. And I also did take AP Bio. I'd say AP Bio is kind of, if it's going to be related to Living Earth, it's going to be more second semester, because I feel like AP Bio talks a lot about the little stuff. It's a lot about cells. It's a lot about like cell systems, that kind of stuff. A lot of chemistry is involved in AP Bio. And Apes is just really more about ecosystems. Yeah, there's no really talk about like cells or chemistry or anything like that. And I'd say the workload is a lot lighter than AP Bio. And yeah, I think that's it.
And thank you to all of our speakers. That is it for today's AP day, I guess. For those watching on YouTube, the slideshow and other Bruin and Bruin information can be found in the description. And then this is also going to be on the Bruin to Bruin IGTV Instagram account. And is there, well, for anybody who's looking at this from another source, do you guys have a, I'm asking all speakers this now. Do you guys have a handle that we can plug? Doing this for every single one.
Yeah, should I just like type my Instagram in the chat or something?
Sure.
Okay. I'll just.
Okay, so I don't think people can see the chat. So Chantal's, actually, I will just put everyone's @ in the description so you guys can click instead of replay those last few seconds for everyone's @ That was loud. Okay, but that is it for this one. I'm gonna stop recording.